She was partying, laughing, entering hot body contests, while her 2-year-old daughter was already dead. For a month. Maybe more. July 2008, Orlando, Florida, a young mother named Caylee Anthony smiled for cameras, danced in clubs, and even got a tattoo that said, "Bella Vita, beautiful life," in Italian. But beneath the glitter of nightlife hid a darkness that would stun the entire nation. Her little girl, Caylee, was missing. Only. Caylee didn't report it. Not for 31 days. And when she finally did, nothing made sense. No one knew where Caylee was. Caylee blamed a mysterious nanny. Police smelled lies. And soon, the entire country would be watching one of the most disturbing trials in American history unfold. What really happened to baby Caylee? And why did Caylee lie, again and again? Buckle up, because this story only gets darker. Hit like, subscribe and let's go. Before the headlines, before the courtroom cameras. Caylee Anthony was just another young woman living under her parents' roof in a quiet Orlando suburb. She was 22, with bright eyes, a confident smile, and a little girl who followed her everywhere, Caylee Marie, a bubbly toddler with big brown eyes and a love for Winnie the Pooh. The Anthony household on Hope Spring Drive looked like any other: trimmed lawn, American flag out front, neighbors who waved. Caylee's parents, Cindy and George, doted on their granddaughter. Caylee called them Mommy and Papa more often than not. Caylee said she was working at Universal Studios. But no one ever saw her in uniform. Still, life rolled on. Family dinners. Pool days. Smiles in photos. Everything seemed fine, until, slowly, the cracks began to show. Late nights. Excuses. Whispers behind closed doors. And then, one day, Caylee vanished. Just like that. It was June 15, 2008, Father's Day, when Caylee was last seen alive by her grandparents. The next day, Caylee left the house with her daughter, and never brought her back. Days turned into weeks. Cindy Anthony kept asking to see Caylee. Caylee always had an excuse: the nanny had her, they were at the beach, at Disney, sleeping. But the stories kept shifting. And something didn't sit right. Then, on July 13, George Anthony found a notice on the door: Caylee's car had been towed. When he picked it up, the smell hit him. Strong. Sour. Like something dead. He opened the trunk and found a trash bag, rotting pizza, flies. But that smell, it clung to everything. Cindy called 911 the next day. First, to report the car. Then, seconds later, her voice cracked: "It smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car." And finally, she said the unthinkable: "My granddaughter's been missing for 31 days. Something was very, very wrong. And it was only beginning." Caylee sat calmly in the police station, her voice steady, almost rehearsed. She told detectives Caylee had been kidnapped by a nanny named Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez. A woman no one had ever met. She claimed she'd been doing her own investigation. For a month. And hadn't told anyone, not even her mother. But when police asked her to take them to her workplace at Universal Studios, Caylee agreed. They walked through the lobby. Down the hall. She smiled at staff. Nodded at doors. Then, stopped. Turned around. And admitted she didn't work there. Hadn't in years. Investigators stared in silence. It was a lie, all of it. And still, no sign of Caylee. Caylee gave bizarre explanations: borrowed friends' shovels, got a new tattoo, Bella Vita. She partied at clubs. Entered contests. Smiled in photos while America searched for a missing child. Something was unraveling. And behind Casey's smile, was a silence that screamed that in December 2008, 6 months after Caylee vanished, everything changed. A meter reader named Roy Kronk was walking along a wooded area near the Anthony home, a swampy, overgrown patch just off Suburban Drive. He stumbled upon something strange, a trash bag, partly buried, partly torn. Inside, were the skeletal remains of a small child. A tiny skull. Duct tape. A baby blanket. A Winnie the Pooh shirt. It was Caylee. Her body had been dumped just 15 houses from where she lived. And suddenly, the lies weren't just disturbing, they were chilling. The pieces began to fall into place, the smell in the car, the internet searches for chloroform, the tales of a fake nanny, the weeks of partying. For the public, the mask was off. This wasn't just a missing child case anymore. This was a possible murder. The nation held its breath, and Casey Anthony became the most hated woman in America. The autopsy confirmed what many feared, the remains belonged to little Caylee Marie Anthony. But there was no clear cause of death. No trauma. Just duct tape across the skull and traces of decomposition. The medical examiner called it a homicide, by undetermined means. For Casey, this was no longer about missing persons or lost time, it was about life or death. A grand jury indicted her for first-degree murder. If convicted, she could face the death penalty. The Anthony family fell apart, Cindy clung to denial, George broke down on national TV. America watched in disbelief. How could a mother not report her child missing for 31 days? How could she go out drinking while her daughter decomposed in the woods? And yet, Casey pled not guilty. Her lawyers hinted at a dark family secret. At abuse. At trauma. Was she hiding more than just a lie? Or was it all part of a deeper manipulation? The truth, whatever it was now buried under months of silence and deceit. In May 2011, the trial of Casey Anthony began, and the world stopped to watch. Cameras filled the courtroom. Reporters lined the streets. Millions of Americans tuned in daily, hungry for answers. The prosecution painted her as a cold, calculating liar who murdered her daughter to reclaim her freedom. They showed the party photos, the web searches for how to make chloroform, and the duct tape over Caylee's skull. But the defense dropped a bomb. They claimed Caylee had drowned in the family pool, and that George Anthony, Casey's father, helped cover it up. Worse, they alleged George had sexually abused Casey as a child, twisting her sense of truth and fear. George denied everything. The jury watched in stunned silence. What was real? Who was lying? The courtroom became a battlefield of doubt and manipulation. For the first time, Casey cried openly. But were they tears of grief, or of strategy? As closing arguments loomed, one question gripped the nation: was this a tragic accident, or the face of a killer? July 5, 2011. After 6 weeks of testimony and over 400 pieces of evidence, the jury returned with a verdict. The courtroom was silent. Casey stood still, barely breathing. Not guilty of first-degree murder. Not guilty of manslaughter. Just one conviction: lying to the police. Gasps filled the room. Outside, crowds screamed in fury. People cried. Threw signs. Some even chanted, "Justice for Caylee." America was stunned. How could she walk free? The evidence had felt overwhelming. The lies. The silence. The duct tape. And yet, the jury had doubts. No clear cause of death. No proof of intent. The law had spoken, and Casey Anthony would not be punished for her daughter's death. It felt like the end. Like justice had slipped through trembling hands. But as Caylee left the courtroom, shielded by guards, the story didn't fade. In fact, it was only growing. Documentaries, protests, interviews, the world still demanded answers. Somewhere, buried beneath rage and grief, a single question pulsed louder than ever: what really happened to Caylee Marie Anthony? In the years that followed the trial, Caylee Anthony disappeared from the spotlight, but America never let her go. Public anger burned on, but slowly, a different kind of reckoning took shape. Journalists dug deeper. Investigators re-examined the evidence. And something shifted, not in the courtroom, but in the hearts of those who had followed every moment. Caylee's memory became a cause. Across the country, laws were introduced: Caylee's Law, requiring parents to report missing children within 24 hours. It was too late for Caylee, but maybe, just maybe, it would save another child. And Caylee? She tried to rebuild a life in the shadows. Gave a few interviews. Opened a photography business. Said she slept fine at night. But the truth, whatever it was, remained tangled in silence. In the end, it wasn't justice that brought closure. It was legacy. The legacy of a little girl whose smile sparked a national movement. And that, perhaps, was the only light left in a story drenched in darkness. The Caylee Anthony case remains one of America's most haunting mysteries, a story of loss, lies, and the search for truth that divided a nation. Caylee's absence left a void that no verdict could fill. Caylee's freedom sparked outrage, but it also forced a deeper look at how justice works, and where it sometimes fails. Years later, the questions linger: what really happened behind closed doors? Could this tragedy have been prevented? And how do we protect the innocent in a world full of shadows? For many, the answers remain elusive, wrapped in pain and silence. Now, it's your turn. What do you believe? Was Caylee a victim, a villain, or something in between? Share your thoughts below. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and let's keep uncovering the truths hidden beneath the surface. Because some stories don't end, they echo forever.